Ladies and gentlemen, SideStrafe back with Star Wars Battlefront, and today's video is post-commentary. We'll be discussing what I think of the game in its current state, and perhaps get a little bit more in-depth talking about the battle for Endor, especially when it concerns playing as the Imperials, as they seem to have a tough time winning on Walker Assault. But I think a lot of you, especially when I live stream, you ask, what I think of the game and whether it's worth purchasing. This game is still receiving a lot of hatred. Not as much as I think it did maybe during the beta or even before that. But a lot of people love to hate this game simply because it's not a true successor to Battlefront 2. A lot of people still not wanting to let go of the fact that it's a new Star Wars game that unfortunately shares a title. And I've always said the biggest mistake that I think EA and DICE made was to name it Battlefront. They should have just called it something else. Star Wars, insert other title here, But they didn't. They wanted to market this towards Battlefront fans. Had they named it anything else, maybe we wouldn't have had room to complain. There would still be comparisons because it's DICE and they make Battlefield, and so people would expect Battlefield plus Star Wars. And since it's got 40 players and large maps and objectives that are similar to what we had in Battlefront 2, people would still make the comparison, but there really wouldn't be too much room to complain, especially when considering the title. So with that said, I think the number one thing people like to throw at me is, if this wasn't Star Wars, you wouldn't be playing it. Well, it is Star Wars, and I am playing it. And oh my goodness, I happen to enjoy it. Blasphemy! How dare you? Perhaps the game needed another system requirement, and that requirement be that you need to absolutely adore Star Wars to enjoy this title. Maybe that helps you overlook some of the things that are apparently driving others crazy. I don't know, but every time I jump into this with my friends that love Star Wars, we seem to have a fantastic time. Win, lose, draw, we're having a blast. We are stormtroopers. We are rebels fighting for the Alliance. We get a few minutes as heroes and villains, jumping out as Lord Vader with his red lightsaber, force choking fools left and right. Maybe you hop out as Han Solo, blasting people to bits. Leia, protecting the rebellion and its causes. You get this time in this game, and it's fun. And it looks great, and it sounds great. But SideStrafe graphics aren't everything. They're a big part of the immersion factor, and people often neglect that. Video games need to bring us into their realms. We need to feel like we're a part of this franchise, and to do that, you have to have great visuals and sound. And DICE has absolutely knocked it out of the fracking park. And hey, if enjoying this game makes me a simpleton, then I guess it's good to be a simpleton. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to switch gears and discuss some of the pain points that I think surround this title. And most of it, I think, comes down to map balancing. This one, for example, Endor as Imperials, very difficult for this team to win. It can happen. It has happened. But it takes, I think, the best of the best players and a lot of coordination. And, well, when you're dealing with online gameplay, you're running around with strangers, you're not always going to get that. But as it is right now, this is Walker Assault with only one AT-AT. And so, therefore, it's a lot easier for the Rebels to take down this target, especially when it's walking through a very narrow corridor, if you will. ATSTs also have a problem staying alive because there's very limited areas of movement. It's a big forest. You can kind of fit through, but again, it's hard to maneuver, hard to stay alive. So the advantage of having ATSTs around and AT-ATs focus firing on infantry doesn't work as well as it does in the more open maps. On top of that, there's no Imperial air support. There's no Rebel air support either, but it still seems to be part of the equation. Is there a way to resolve this? Well, can we fit in another AT-AT somewhere? There's a waterside, like a lakeside area, that maybe the AT-ATs could come through there, at least one other one, and it tries to make its way inland. That would possibly help and increase the difficulty for the rebels. Could we just simply move around the objectives to make them easier to obtain? There's one that's placed up in the treetops, in the tree fort areas, that's very difficult to acquire with a team of strangers. And so maybe that needs to be repositioned. Now, it makes sense to have an uplink there, you know, from a military perspective. You know, why not put it somewhere that's easy to protect, right? Well, I guess from a gameplay, a game balance position, it doesn't make things any easier on the imps. And again, I'm not saying you can't win, but the percentage of time that the Imperials do seems to be pretty slim. I'd love to actually see numbers. I'd love to know how often Imperials do win on this map, and whether it's simply a matter of, you know, maybe learning the game a bit more. I don't know. But right now, it does seem to be one of the major problems. As far as the other maps, Walker Assault can come down to maybe placement of certain, like, turrets. Like, there's Sullus that has these turbo lasers on the left and right sides of the map, and more often than not, a competent player will just get in those and blast everybody to the bits. And it's very difficult to move forward. So, I don't know. Again, you're thinking, well, Imperials have AT-STs, and the two AT-ATs moving around, that's their advantage. But then it really depends on there being competent drivers, people getting these power-ups that know what they're doing with them, because more often than not, somebody gets a power-up, they drive right into the enemy position and get obliterated within seconds. When you should be sitting in the back line, kind of just mowing down rebels, and then assaulting when the time is right to take positions, and then hold that position until the time is up, and then move forward to the next one. You can apply tanker tactics to the AT-ST. But, you know, not everybody gets how that's how it works. You know, they don't understand armored support vehicles. So you kind of have to make up for that with better map design. Again, the maps are gorgeous, but the position of some of the objectives and some of the things in the way of the objectives might be affecting the amount of fun an individual team can have. As far as the rebels succeeding, you know, as far as any issues with them being able to win, I remember in the beta test, it seemed like the rebels had a tough time winning on Hoth. But eventually that was, you know, balanced out. The thing is, we never got to test the other maps. And maybe we needed a full-on beta test to see how to resolve these issues. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. Can these things be resolved in time? Sure they can. Hopefully we get that kind of support. Beyond that, star cards. Grenade spam. Oh my goodness. I don't think I've ever seen so much grenade spam in all my years as a gamer. It's pretty ridiculous. And I'm pretty sure that most people look at their grenades as primary weapons instead of secondary. You've got the impact grenade and the thermal detonator. And you can equip both of them. So you basically have two lethal star cards that you can throw. Then you've got some non-lethals like flashbangs and smoke. And then you have the power-ups like thermal imploder, which you can also come across. And then there's some drop-down ones too. that act like bouncing betties. But that's just too much. And on the smaller maps, when you're playing like blast mode or something like that, it's just constant hallways of detonators, and it just gets ridiculous. And then you start thinking about the movies, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to be in the movies and live out famous firefights, but there wasn't tons of people throwing grenades everywhere. And so it just gets insane. So how do we resolve this? Well, we could either increase the cooldown timers on the thermal detonators and impact grenades. Or what if you could only take one type of lethal grenade? So you can either bring thermal det or impact. Choose one. And then you could, of course, have non-lethal like flashbang or smoke, because that wouldn't really affect too much. But just having the two, I don't know, maybe that's a bit much. There's got to be a solution, because right now it's insanity. I haven't spoken to one person that says, oh, no, it's fine. It just seems nuts. And again, it's not as bad here, but when you play the smaller modes, it's absolutely ridiculous. Moving on to another star card that I think is controversial. Scan Pulse. Basically, a legal wall hack. You hit it, a pulse wave comes out, and you can see people within a certain range through the environment. Through the walls, trees, whatever. You can see their red silhouettes, just like you can see that character that just killed me. You'll see those silhouettes through the walls, and you'll know where the enemy is. So if you ever get killed, somebody hops out and blasts, taking you out, and you're like, it's almost like they knew I was there. They did know you were there. They did, because of Scan Pulse. And most really competitive players always equip Scan Pulse, or they're in a squad with somebody that has it. What do we do about this? Well, I don't like built-in wall hacks in any video game. I'm 100% against their existence. I think they take away from the skill factor. I would be happy with them being gone. However, I know they probably won't remove it. So what next? Well, again, I think it just comes down to either increasing the cooldown timer or decreasing the radius, possibly. Because the other thing to think about is you can upgrade your star cards. You'll notice how some star cards have a white background, some have a black. The black one are upgraded, which in most cases decreases the cooldown timers or increases the duration. I think with the Scan Pulse upgrade, it increases the duration, so you see people running around behind walls for longer periods of time. Again, this is personal preference for me. You might be thinking, no, I love it. You know, what am I going to do? I'm against it being in the game. But, you know, it is what it is. We already have third-person perspective, which is a massive advantage for the player. I don't see why we need something like Scan Pulse. And by the way, for those of you wondering why I'm playing in third person, because it's a massive advantage. I could hide behind a redwood tree and still see everything around it, left and right. And that's that lake area I was talking about where we could maybe fit another AT-AT. But yeah, if you're not playing in third person, you are potentially hurting yourself. I'm not saying for everyone, you know, to each your own, have fun the way you want to have fun, but it is a logical advantage. And while I would prefer the game be first person only, you know, third person is something that comes from Battlefront and something that a lot of people like. So as long as it's here, I'm going to use it because I just play way better with it. But beyond that, I think it just comes down to weapon balances. You know, what weapons feel overpowered? Is it just our imagination? Is it just some people being grumpy by the fact that others have found weapons that they're good with? Could be. The DL-44 is a hot topic, the Han Solo blaster pistol. It is super powerful at, I want to say, medium to short ranges. The downsides to it, I think, is that it overheats pretty quickly, and then it's semi-automatic. So it's a bit of a skill weapon. You know, it does take some good aim to be able to use it, but in the right hands, it's just absolutely devastating. I don't really want to say that any one weapon is horribly overpowered just yet. I think there are definitely weapons that need work. The DL-44, I think, could maybe have a few things addressed with it, but I mean, I do pretty damn good with the beginner weapons. You know, that's the thing I think I really like about the game is I still use the DLT and the E11 all the time. I always try out other ones, but I always go back to these ones. I think maybe my third favorite might be the T21 or possibly the 21B, just for long-range semi-automatic fire. But beyond that, I do really well with the E11, and you can get that very quickly. I mean, it's the standard issue weapon for the Imperials, but then you can also get it as Rebels with a few credits. So that's the one thing I absolutely adore about this game, is that there's no need to progress to some insane level to get the best weapons. And finally, at least for today, I'll discuss customization, or perhaps the lack thereof. Now, the biggest issue seems to be the fact that we have helmetless stormtroopers. First of all, why the hell would you take off your helmet as a stormtrooper? It's one of the most iconic helmets of all time. It's the intimidating factor. You look like a badass when you're wearing it. Who cares if you can't see? You look cool, and that's what matters. But really, okay, yeah, it's not canon. Troopers never took off their helmets in the original trilogy. And no, you can't count Luke and Han in disguise. The Star Wars nerd in me freaks out a bit about it. I think there's a simple solution that's fair for everyone. A simple in-game setting that allows one to toggle customizations on or off. Done. Everybody's happy. Well, you're probably going to get a small percentage of people that feel that their customizations need to be seen by everybody, as it's their only way of expressing their achievements, but I don't think it's a huge deal. I think that it's, again, just the most fair thing to do. Beyond that, if we look at the customizations that we do have, the alien races that the Rebel Alliance gets towards the end levels, probably should give some of those out earlier, just to create, you know, a little bit more variety and reward individuals. But beyond that, we've got the Scout Trooper armor and Shadow Trooper armor at 40 and 50 for the Imperials. Here's my thing about that. As cool as they look, and I love Scout Trooper armor, I've been a big fan of Scout Trooper armor since Return of the Jedi, I feel like they're going to be everywhere, especially Shadow Troopers, as they do also provide a tactical advantage on the Night Endor map. There's just going to be too many of them. Now, they cost 17,000 credits, and you have to hit rank 50, so that might deter a lot of people, but yeah, I don't know if that's the route they should have taken. Perhaps they should have done what they did with the Shock Trooper that's in this, that escorts the villains. Maybe put some different color markings on the armor to signify unit designations and ranks. I think that would have been brilliant. I think that would have been a cool way to show that you are maybe some sort of Special Forces trooper. Or maybe even different shoulder pauldrons, different color pauldrons would have been an interesting idea. Things to do with the armor to kind of show veterancy. But not just make everybody a Shadow Trooper or a Scout Trooper, as cool as they are. Perhaps something could be done in the menu as well. Scout Troopers make sense. You know, it'd be nice to see a good amount of them in a battle, especially on Endor, but I just don't want to see every single person being one, and especially not every single person being a Shadow Trooper. But again, not game-breaking and a minor thought, really. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, extremely hard-fought match for me. Second place, unfortunately, no victory. Really hope you've enjoyed this look at Star Wars Battlefront. Stay tuned for more, and I will definitely see you on the next one.